It's kind of interesting, right? Like opening day of a season. Is it a different feel for a fighter? I mean, because you're prepping for a fight, right? But you're prepping for multiple fights. Is it a little bit different feel?
I would imagine so. I think anytime you're starting something fresh, right? And that's what it feels like, in the PFL, which is very different than, the UFC or whatever, other organizations where, every fight that you have matters and it means something for later. And I guess that's the case either way, but it's directly responsible for who you get next or, what kind of matchup you get if you want to make it into the post, season. So, I find that interesting, and no one wants to lose or anything like that. But, I do think there's more of a push for you to go out there and not only win, but win impressively and get as many points as possible. So, maybe a little bit more pressure filled for each and every fight, but also probably feels good that you kind of get a chance to, direct or steer your destiny a little bit more.
It's kind of cool, as we're talking about this format, right? When the PFL first started, you're like, oh, it's a gimmick. Everybody's looking for their gimmick, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like it's not a gimmick anymore. It's actually kind of cool. So obviously, part of the UFC, big MMA fan.
Yeah.
You get it, man.
Yeah.
You're not just stumping for the company here, whatever. It's actually kind of a cool format, right?
Yeah, I like the format, and I think number one, obviously the UFC is the biggest organization in mixed martial arts, and I think it's almost foolish to kind of compete directly with them in that regard and kind of have a similar format. But I also think that the PFL has carved out this niche for themselves. Also because I think fans like that. I think fans like a tournament. You look at everything from March Madness to, all the different tournaments, World Cup or whatever. I love that. Myself, I think it's exciting. And, I think in a lot of ways, in a very political environment in professional sports, especially in mixed martial arts, I think it kind of takes out anyone else's ability to make a decision for you and say, hey, I know you want this fight, but we're going to give you this guy. Your destiny really is in your hands, and I can definitely appreciate that as a fighter. I think it's an awesome opportunity for them. Yeah, and not to mention, you can come in here, maybe not fresh on your mixed martial arts career, but relatively early in your career, and make more money than potentially anyone can, even in maybe a decade in the sport, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So they're kind of leaning on that, I guess, headliner here, right? Jeremy Stephens, Clay Collard. I guess, this fight, I mean, is this just it's just who lands first, right? That's these two dudes just keep going in the middle and points and standings and whatever. At that point, it's just a brawl.
This is probably the one that has me most giddy because both these guys are such snipers and are so damn keen on getting after it. But they're both going to have to be careful here. Here's the way I see it, and I've said this many times when you get these kind of matchups, but if this fight goes the distance, it's going to be an absolute classic. But I will be surprised if it goes the distance. Just the way that these guys fight, they like to stand in the pocket and land big shots. I think Jeremy Stephens has more power, Clay Collard more precision. So I think it's a fascinating matchup, and I think both these guys get fired up for fights like these, knowing that they don't have to worry about takedowns or grappling so much. There may be some grappling involved. I don't know, but something tells me these guys are going to throw down, and it's going to be fun.
What about Jeremy Stephens, right? Coming in, the guy's 15 years in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
I mean, an MMA fight is an MMA fight, right? But it's a different cage, it's different lights. It's different people on fight week. You know what I mean? Does that stuff? Cause I always wonder how much that matters, right? It's a fight, but does all that stuff change a little bit?
I would think so, John. I can't speak to that so much, but I would think so. You get familiar with your environment and the way things work and all that stuff. I know, with Anthony Pettis, when he came over last season, I talked to him in the postseason. He came over. He goes, you know what? He goes, I did not know what to expect and how to really prepare for the season. He goes, now that I've experienced it, I kind of know how to prepare and get ready for this. And I thought that was really interesting. And I think Jeremy Stephens may find himself in a similar point where this is totally new. And, you have to pace yourself as far as your training. You have to pace yourself as far as how hard you go, maybe even in your first fight. It's like, hey, he might go out there and get a knockout, but then breaks his hands or, had an injury from the fight that kind of plagues him for the rest of the season. So to me, it's really fascinating how that approach is going to be. And a lot of times it's like, this is a situation where they just don't know what they don't know. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how his approach is going to be.
I love it. All right, so talking about kind of unknowns. The other one that I'm really intrigued by, Raush Manfio, Don Madge, right? Raush, one of the greatest stories in sports. Like, I don't know if you could ever replicate that, right? And then Don Madge, this guy that clearly is talented, but has had all this trouble, like getting fights and visas and all this stuff. Like, just talk to me about what you see in that fight, because I feel like there's so much unknowns.
This is another one that I'm really excited about. Yeah, Raush has an awesome story. Obviously, an underdog coming into last season. Wasn't even supposed to be in last season. He was an alternate coming in here. He was the training partner of the double champ, Natan Schultz. I don't think a lot of people expected much out of him. Was winning fights, but kind of was squeaking by. I don't mean that disrespectfully. He was, winning close fights against really good opponents, by the way. So it's still very, very impressive. And he just seemed to get better and stronger and more confident with each and every fight. Every fight he was the underdog, and he came through, which was pretty amazing. And it shows a resilience and a confidence that I think is rare for a fighter at his stage of the game. So I think he'll be that much better this season. But Don Madge is a problem. He's extremely talented. He's tall, lanky. He's good everywhere. He's extremely confident. In talking to a lot of people who like to put money down on the line, a lot of gamblers, they love Don Madge. And again, it's kind of like, man, people are sleeping on Raush Manfio again, and he's the champ. So I think it's going to be a fascinating fight. And listen, I think Raush is a fantastic fighter, but there are certain things where you see okay, he needs to tweak this, needs to tweak that. But man, maybe his toughness and durability gets him through to the championship round again. And it turns out that he's extremely consistent. Who knows? And I think that's what makes this tournament format so interesting. And the regular season is so interesting because you could win and squeak by a decision, not get so many points, or you can have a fast track into the postseason with a quick knockout or submission. So, yeah, I have no idea how this fight is going to go, but I think this is another one to watch for sure.
I love it, man. All right, last thing I'll ask you, not ask you to be a salesman or whatever, but I mean, listen, you understand that it's a crowded landscape out there. It's UFC, Bellator, one. But if people haven't given the PFL a chance, here we are starting a new season. It's a Wednesday night, right? We're not asking you we're not asking for your Saturday. You already got that lined up. I guess what would you tell people that maybe haven't checked out the PFL? Why should they check it out? Yeah,
listen, I think midweek fights are always super cool. I think they're always fun. There's a lot of rabid MMA fans out there, and for people who are sleeping on the PFL, we had some of the best fights last year. I love it, and not only last year, but traditionally we've had some amazing fights and have produced some amazing fighters. Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje, a lot of guys who have come in here, and not to mention some of the guys who are coming over from the UFC or from elsewhere or that are just getting started, this is perhaps, could be the biggest year of their lives, of their career. No matter where they're coming from. So they have the opportunity to make more money than ever. And I think a lot of these guys are fighting with that same kind of motivation, whether they see it as a second chance or whether they see it as an opportunity to really change their lives. I think we've gotten some amazing fights because of it. We have everything from the experienced fighter to the hungry guys that are coming up right now. And I tell you, even the guys that are not in the regular season, there's some really, really good talent coming up in the PFL. And I expect some more classic fights for this one.